If I had $1 for every Korean MMO under the Project moniker currently in development, I'd have enough to afford a McDonald's dinner box, which admittedly might give me more satisfaction than playing the vast majority of these games will. And will probably last about as long as I do in the right, TMI, right. But just because many of these games will suffer from rampant pay to win, mobile crossplay, and long, arduous grinds, does not mean that they all will, which is where today's video comes in. I was DM'd info on a brand new upcoming PC console cross-platform MMORPG currently in development. This is an MMO that no news outlet has reported on. This is a game absolutely nobody even knows exists, which means I'm the first person to cover it, and you guys are the first group of gamers to really learn of it. Before we discuss the game, let me give you a little background on the studio and the project. Polestar Games is a brand new upstart gaming studio with no history of game development. I couldn't find info on who the studio was comprised of, but I did find out some of the team is comprised of old Decaron developers. Decaron, of course, being a classic old school MMO released back in 2004 that is still around today. I'm sure there are plenty of you that played it. Regardless of their history, there was clearly enough talent and vision to have received 3 billion won in seed funding, which equates to roughly 2.2 million US dollars from 3 different investors. $2.2 million is not even remotely close to being enough to develop a full-fledged MMORPG in today's market, but this is merely seed funding, money to get the development process off the ground. Further investments will continue to pour in as necessary, and additional investors will likely show interest as progress is shown. According to Crunchbase, investors as of September 2023 include Laguna Investment, Daisung Startup Investment, and Kakao Ventures. For the sake of clarity here, I want to point out that investors have typically very little, if any, control over the direction of a game, since I know a few of you immediately cringed at the mention of Kakao. Polestar Games' MMORPG is confirmed to be fully cross-platform compatible, but not with mobile. Rather, Polestar went on to address concerns of potential players by stating that they want to create a AAA MMORPG and are therefore aware that the mobile platform is currently not at a point where that is possible. Project N, the working title for their game right now, is described as being a medieval dark fantasy, which is admittedly a theme and setting that many Korean studios are going for these days. I'm not sure why. Project N is also confirmed to feature a completely open world for players to explore. Whether that ultimately ends up being closer to Final Fantasy XIV and Guild Wars 2 with segregated zones, or entirely open like Black Desert, remains to be seen. Unfortunately, there was no mention of the engine being used to build the game, Unity, Unreal Engine, or their own custom engine, which admittedly, they did confirm that they were in the process of developing for future games, which means they already consider this to be a potential success, or at the very least have delusions of grandeur. I'm going to assume Unreal Engine 5, given it's a Korean MMO releasing onto both PC and console. I wouldn't expect it to release on a poorly optimized, poorly performing engine like Unreal 4, like Elion. They didn't note the combat style, action or tab target. I'd assume action, given Korean games as of the last couple years have all been utilizing action combat, and for an MMO to compete with the likes of Black Desert Online, it's going to need it. Because, let's be honest, there's really no way Project N will compete with either Final Fantasy XIV or World of Warcraft. That just ain't in the realm of possibility. Before we go any further into this video, I want to take a moment to thank my legendary patrons over on Patreon who continue to support me every single month and allow for me to continue to cover new upcoming MMOs like this every single month as well. You guys are incredible. Now back to the video. Korean MMOs tend to be very similar. They're grindy, they're pay to win, but they always look absolutely stunning and tend to play about as smoothly as they look. I don't foresee Project N being any different in this regard, but at the same time, I think it definitely has some potential. It isn't being developed by a studio with a long history of poorly received games. That's a positive change. It isn't launching cross-platform onto mobile, which means we don't have to worry about autoplay or that the gameplay loop revolves around tedious grinds. Another positive. Unfortunately, that does not mean the game won't be pay to win, and we still haven't seen any gameplay or a UI. I mean, heck, even concept art yet, which means Project N is still likely a ways off from being in a playable state. Given they just released information on their seed investment on September 20th, it's likely they're in the early stages of development, which means the finalized game might still be several years away, like Ashes of Creation, launching in 2073, or the Riot MMO. There's also no current confirmation of a global release or any interest in global access. I'd speculate they will release globally at some point, or will likely announce their global intentions, as the global market is one of the most appealing and lucrative to Korean studios. We've seen this done with numerous other upcoming MMOs like Chrono Odyssey, Odin Valhalla Rising, Grand Saga, Ragnarok, Project XT, and more. It's just a matter of whether it'll be a simultaneous worldwide release or not. It's exciting that we have so many MMOs to look forward to over the next decade. The issue we all run into is finding something worthwhile to play in the meantime, which admittedly is something one of the videos that are on screen right now might help you out with.